Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Jimmy Dore is joining me. We had dinner last night. A little late reservation, but it was fun. We were,
PM reservation. We stretched it out till 1:30 in the morning. It was fun.
and I joined Jimmy. He was nice enough to have me on his live show.
That was fun.
You said something last night that the energy in Chicago at your live show was a little different.
They were well. They're always amped when I do shows in Los Angeles, but they were extra amped here. They were standing when the show started. They were standing when the show ended. They were really into it. So I don't know what it was, but they seem a little more thirsty for it. And you made the observation that maybe I'm from here, and so I speak their language.
Well, I also think we just saw Orange Orangutan elected because the Rust Belt is desperate for some change, and unfortunately, a huckster, a fraud, was able to convince them, mixed with a neoliberal. We know the story. But tell me about this. Was your first People Summit. Tell me about the weekend. What was your observations?
Okay, so it was wild to see all the progressives. It's good to be in a place where you're not outnumbered, right? It's everywhere we go. We're always outnumbered as progressives, and we have to ask politely if we can speak and things. And so here, that's not what it is. Even though they've been making noise about, hey, who's funding this thing, and I have to look into that. So I have to do my due diligence.
I think it's Putin.
I think it was Putin who's funding this for sure. I did have some pasta Putinesca, so that's not good. But so this has been fun. I missed Bernie's speech last night because I was out doing my live show and I wasn't able to make it back. But this is what I think Bernie-crats or progressives, I think we need things like this that I don't even know who's funding it, but I know the sense here, the ideas here are progressive. And you're not going to be shamed for being a progressive here. In fact, this is what's going to get you cheered here is by espousing progressive ideas. And people are learning about how to implement progressive ideas. That's what this is about, right? People learning how to take action. And by the way, someone told me, I wasn't here, maybe it was you told me, Bernie asked how many people here are running for office, and there must have been a couple hundred hands that went up. So he's inspired people to actually get involved in politics and try to take over at the grassroots level as progressives. So that's what's happening here. And to see that, it's just like, well, I sound like a broken record maybe, but Chomsky says that, we're made to feel like our opinions aren't shared by anybody else because it's never reflected back in the establishment media. And so when you get together like this, you realize, oh, we're not crazy. It's not just me. There's more people actually do feel this way. And it reminds us that when polled, the nation is progressive on every issue. When polled. So that means we are a progressive nation. We just need to take over our government again. And it seems like it's happening. And to come to places like this to see it happen, it's inspiring because it's very easy to get beaten down, especially with the kind of bullshit the Democratic Party keeps pulling, like they just did in California, like they're doing in Ohio with Nina Turner and trying to get Jerry Springer to run. It's crap like that, right?
Were you aware that the Democratic Party, they would rather Jerry Springer as the governor than Nina Turner? Let that sink in.
Yeah, let that. Really, seriously, talk about rather lose to a Republican than win with a progressive, right? So that's why it's good to come to stuff like this. And, it's like, is this perfect? No, this isn't a perfect thing, but this is a great thing, right? And it's great to see other progressives, It's good to see the Washington Post walking around. The Washington Post thinking about how we could spin this into a pro-war story. I love that Washington Post. So that's why it's good to be here. You get to see those guys right up close, right? And they're all handsome.
Let me drop. I'm very big on dropping. I want to drop the veil. I want to pull back the curtain. So Dave Weigel from the Washington Post is here. I don't know him personally. I've met him once or twice. I don't have anything against him, but he's kind of smeared.
I do.
He's kind of smeared my man Jimmy. He just tweeted out, I think this morning, something about it's really good to see. Cable news might want to have more Democratic socialists on because I see a lot of them here, or something like that. And I tweeted back, yeah, maybe the Washington Post might want that too. Instead of hiring John Podesta, we're very short on loser Democrats at the Washington Post and elsewhere. I think something that the People Summit should discuss more maybe next year. Yes, you're fighting the oligarchy, you're fighting the political forces. The corporate media is a very large force that you're also fighting. Can you kind of talk about, whether it's Weigel or whatever else, all the people I'm going to be interviewing today, activists, candidates, whatever, they do not have a platform other than the Young Turks, Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kulinski, on and on. There's very few outlets that will give platform to causes or people that are not going to make them money.
Or what they'll also do is they'll marginalize anybody. Don't let a tweet by a reporter fool you. The Washington Post is anti-progressive, it's anti-people, it's owned by a billionaire who makes $80 billion. Do you really think those are the people who should be bringing us the news in an era of neoliberalism, in an era of perpetual war? Someone who's worth $80 billion, who has an investment in the status quo, who doesn't want progressivism, who doesn't want to end neoliberalism, that's the guy. Everyone knows Rupert Murdoch has an influence over Fox and every paper he runs, but somehow Jeff Bezos doesn't have an influence over the Washington Post. I'm sorry, but I got a bridge to sell you in Florida. By the way, it's being fracked under right now. So that's what people right now, in the run-up to the Iraq War, the Washington Post ran 24 pro-war editorials. In the last election, they ran 16 negative stories on Bernie Sanders in 16 hours. That's who the establishment media is. Do they do good work sometimes? Yes, because they have a lot of money and a lot of resources, so they are able to cover things, right? Because they have all that money. They're owned by an 80 billionaire, right? I'm not going to say everything that the establishment media does is horrible. They do needed work, which is why we need to make sure they get better. They're not going to get better. That's not happening. So that's why we exist, and that's okay. And are there good people in establishment media trying to do good? Yes. I haven't met them, but they're there. And so that's why we exist. That's why something like this exists, right? Because of the establishment media. We're pushing back against neoliberalism, corporatism, what the Democratic Party has become. And the people, look what happened in the UK. And they're still trying to say, he didn't win. They're still saying that about Jeremy Corbyn. He didn't win.
I just want to note, Theresa May's campaign manager was, I think, one of the campaign managers for Barack Obama in 2008. Jim Messina is his name. So, the neoliberal establishment, they're just going across the ocean. They're toggling back and forth.
Jim Messina's job inside the Obama White House was to make sure single payer and the public option did not make its way into Obamacare. That was Jim Messina's job. And then just a few months ago, he was tweeting out a GoFundMe for a Clinton staffer, for an Obama campaign worker who had gotten sick. This is the same guy who made sure that guy couldn't get affordable health care, and now he has the balls to tweet that out and say, hey, why don't you help give that? Hey, why don't you ask Hillary Clinton and her $150 million to help that guy? Why don't you ask Barack Obama and his $65 million that he just got, or the $400,000 that he just got? Why don't you ask them to help this guy who you guys denied health care to because you're owned by the pharmaceutical industry? That's what's happening. So Jim Messina, he went and worked for a conservative. That's who these people are. And we have to come up with a better term than neoliberalism, because it sounds like liberalism, and it's not. It's the opposite of liberalism. It is corporatism that is crushing people, and people are starting to fight back. The difference between the UK media here is that there's actually legislation that they have to try to have balance in their coverage with the BBC, right? So we don't have that here, right? So that's why you'll never see Noam Chomsky on MSNBC, right? Right? And you only see Bernie on MSNBC when the election's over, right? They would rather show Trump's empty podium, right? So where are the Tulsi Gabbards? Where's the Ralph Naders? Where are the union leaders? How come they're not ever on Sunday news shows? Whenever I turn on a Sunday news show, it's a spokesperson from the military-industrial complex, a banker, or a plagiarist, right? So that's who they have on.
Fareed Zakaria.
I was thinking of Doris Kearns Goodwin. But they're all pretty much, or, Mark Barnacle. They're all plagiarists. They're all insiders. So that's who we're getting our news from. That's why we exist, right? I have to keep reminding people the reason why we exist is because we're in perpetual war, because the establishment media beats the drum for war every time. They're doing it right now. They're not telling you the truth about Syria. Nobody even knows why are we in Syria. Because we're here to help people? That's what people tell me.
It's a pipeline.
So there's a couple of reasons why we're in Syria. The big one is a pipeline, right? They want to put a pipeline through Syria to bring fossil fuels to Europe, and Russia doesn't want that, which is why Russia's propping up Assad. So it's all about a corporations wanting to make money off of fossil fuels and steal it from the people and kill whoever they have to do to make that happen. Like this isn't new, right? Smedley Butler wrote about this. And he said war is a racket, right? That was the most decorated Marine ever when he wrote that, right? So he was in the Banana Wars. wars, and he said every time I was sent to South America, it was at the behest of a corporation to steal the resources of the indigenous people. And we're still doing that. That's what's going on. Iraq. Oh, Wesley Clark Sr. said, well, they had a plan to invade 7 countries. I think we've invaded just about every one of those countries that he said they had a plan to invade. And they always say it's because of terrorism. Now we're in Somalia because of terrorism. We're in Yemen because of terrorism. If we say we're in somewhere because of terrorism, I would get a shovel and start digging because there's oil somewhere.
And I would like to tell you what neoliberalism is. If your child is watching, earmuffs time. Neoliberalism is fucking you up the ass and letting women control the front. That is what neoliberalism is. They don't care about you. They'll let women control their bodies, but they will fuck you from behind. That is neoliberalism. And I would like to say before we end, to humanize Jimmy a little bit, I was very taken aback last night. Yesterday afternoon, I was on a panel with Jimmy. I'm single, by the way, so if you want to know. But Jimmy explained how he met his wife. We don't need to go in the whole thing, but I've had a lot of women come up to me this weekend asking about Jimmy, and I've had to say, no, I've met his wife. She's lovely. Talk about how to be as forceful as you have to have a strong, terrific woman behind you.
She has been bringing me down since the day I met her. No, my wife is a super positive, happy person. She's a teacher. She actually changes people's lives. She has kids visit her after school crying, saying,
come in and say hi. Hello.
Stephanie.
So she makes a difference in the world, whereas, I'm a jag-off nightclub comedian who would rather do dick jokes than help people. And I'm just helping people because there's nobody else doing it. But she's the real deal. And when I first saw her on stage at the Acme Comedy Theater in Los Angeles, I didn't know her, but I said, if my girlfriend was that funny, I would marry her. And so I married her.
Well, you skipped the harassment for 3 years.
She wouldn't talk to me for 3 years, right? So I would go up to her, hi, Steph, I'm Jimmy Dore, and she would hug me like this. And I'm like, oh, I think she's either a lesbian or a climber, right? And I was new to town, so I couldn't help her in show business yet because I had established myself. So she looked right. That's what I thought, right? And so I finally broke her down. She saw me on stage at the House of Blues. I think it impressed her, and then she talked to me afterwards. Okay. That's what happened. And then we went out for dinner, and she drank beer out of a bottle.
There you go. There you go. Jimmy Dore, the Jimmy Dore Show on YouTube. He's the host of the Aggressive Progressives on the Young Turks.
Coming up, Nina Turner right after this. We're going to be interviewing Nina Turner.
There you go. So a friend of mine, a mentor, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.